Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Commerce Committee meeting. I think almost everyone is here in their places with bright, shiny faces this morning. Also want to let you know that we will probably be concluding our calendar for this session today. So I hope that if you brought your yearbooks so that we could all sign them, if not, you'll have a little bit of time that you can go back to your office and get your yearbooks and we can get all the autographs and sentiments shared that we need to. So without further ado, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Alexander, Boyd, Calfee, Camper, Faison, Haston, Hazelwood, Hodges, Holsclaw, Johnson, Lynn, Manis, Moon, Powell, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Before we get started on our lengthy calendar, does anyone have any personal orders today? Personal orders? I see none. So we're going to get right into our calendar. And first up, we're going to welcome back Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk going to talk about, I believe this is I told some folks today, this is like the Fountain of Youth bill. We're going to be talking about estheticians. So, Chairman Hawk, you're recognized on House Bill 915.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. And as young as you look, you'll never need this process. But House Bill 915 was filed in order to clear up a problem brought to us by a 2017 AG opinion. The opinion states that estheticians, you knew I was going to have to say that, didn't you, Chairman? Non-medical employees at a med spa could not perform microneedling. The issue at hand is that the AG did not consider that there are two types of microneedling, one cosmetic and the other a medical procedure. What House Bill 915 does, as amended, will allow an esthetician to perform cosmetic microneedling under the supervision of a physician. As you have presented an amendment to us, Mr. Chairman, we're ready to go forward with that amendment.
All righty, and we have a motion and a second on the bill, but we're not in proper posture on amendment number one. Do I have a motion on that? We got a motion and a second. That's drafting code 6779 for those of you scoring at home. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Any other questions for our bill sponsor? We appreciate you sticking around with us for an extra week to get that language squared away that our apt legal counsel made us aware of. And so with that, if there's no questions of the sponsor, we do have a question. Chairman Holsclaw.
Is that used for hair removal too?
Sponsor?
I'm not aware of that. Maybe I should look into that. If it will remove the hair, or do I need to add some up there? I'm not sure exactly what avenue I'll take on that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're voting on the amendment 6679. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, there are none. Now we're back to the bill. Any questions on the bill for the sponsor? Question on the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none. Chairman Hawk, you're off to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I'll practice my pronunciation between now and then.
Esthetician. Esthetician. Next up, Vice Chairman Bricken on House Bill 965. We've got a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 965. It's a fireworks bill, and it basically just will require that someone who requests a fire permit show they are locally licensed to do business in the state of Tennessee, and that's the essence of the bill.
All righty, and I believe that's contained in Amendment 1, which is drafting code 6839. All righty, that is in proper posture. We like folks that want to be licensed and paid their fair share of taxes. This tends to be an explosive subject matter, though. It's got a short fuse. Therefore, all those in favor of voting on amendment number 1, attaching amendment 1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Ayes have it. You're attached to the bill. I can't believe I've got a million of them. All those in favor of House Bill 965, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. House Bill 965 is going to finance, Representative Bricken. All right. Next on our calendar is House Bill 204 by Leader Camper. Leader Camper, we had some discussions with regards to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we did. I want to appreciate the subcommittee chair and you working with me on this bill. When we were in subcommittee, Mr. Chairman, we talked about some mandatory language, which I had drafted. We did not adopt it because we were still in the process, but you did allow us to move it to full committee to continue the conversation. So I appreciate you and the chairman working with me on that. At this time, we're still at the table. We're still talking about it. We've brought in safety, NFIB, chamber, and we're trying to make sure everybody's position is looked at. Everybody's at the table talking about it. And I appreciate you working with me on this as well, Mr. Chairman. So I'm gonna ask the members if they don't mind supporting me to roll this bill to first calendar next year, and then maybe over the summer we'll have our differences worked out, and we can come back with a comprehensive bill to address what we're trying to do in this legislation, Mr. Chairman. So,
All right, thank you, Leader Camper. And let me say this is, I'm not sure that everyone had a chance or got a chance to see the amendment that Leader Camper had drafted. She sent it to us, and I will say that it touched on all of the issues that we had discussed in our subcommittee meeting. It was done in good faith, and I saw that, and I appreciate that. But without objection, we're going to send that to the first calendar of next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
All right, this is the bill that I've been looking for personally, the last one. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized on House Bill 749.
Motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I have a couple of amendments here.
All righty, let's discuss those. Let's take those in order. House Amendment number 1, I believe, is 6726.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's what I'm showing.
All righty, we have a motion and a second. Yeah, let's get that. Well, I'll tell you what. Even since that rewrites the bill, why don't we get that attached to the bill? We'll take an explanation of both of these items after we're in proper posture with the bill itself.
That sounds good.
So
Mr.
all
Chairman.
those in favor of attaching Amendment 1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Amendment 1 is on the bill. Now, Amendment number 2, our drafting code is 6934.
Motion.
Got a motion? Got a motion and a second. Same on this one. All those in favor of attaching Amendment 2 to House Bill 749, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All righty, we are in good shape with regards to our amendment, what we're considering. Chairman Boyd, it's to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 749 is a bill that's brought by the Safe Building Practices Coalition that's actually an umbrella of the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. This bill has been absolutely a work in progress. We have made adjustments to it and have amended it, and we have worked in collaboration with the local governments from around the state. And we have really worked at this to get it to where I believe local government is very comfortable with this at this point. What this bill would do is it would basically create a process when a local government adopts any codes that affect building materials. It basically says that, and just to clarify, in some places there may be a committee that puts together codes and then they just start enforcing it. That power has been delegated to them by the legislative body of that local government. And in some places that committee puts together the codes, then it's adopted by the city council or the county commission. And what this bill would do would be to create a process by which we would see it uniform across the state, and it would create a compliant way to adopt those. And so what ultimately would happen is whatever codes are put together by the codes committee would have to go through the local legislative body on 2 separate days, 2 hearings, and would have to be passed by a simple majority. And Mr. Chairman, the second amendment that we put on there added something in there just to clarify that this subdivision does not limit the professional judgment of a design professional with respect to electrical, mechanical, or plumbing standards. And I'm very happy to put that on there. I think that needed to be in there. But Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions that the committee has.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Do we have any questions? Okay. I've got Representative Alexander, then I'm coming to you, Leader Camper.
So sponsor, this would be to allow them to use, they have to use certain building materials, or it would do, is there any amendment in there concerning grandfathering in those overlays that are already done in the towns? Or are they going to have to go back and redo everything they've done?
Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what this bill, what would happen, there was some discussion about, there are two different spectrums here. There are some folks that err on the side of building materials and wanted to make sure that no city could in any way prohibit them. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there were folks that believe, which I do, that a local government has the authority to govern themselves and make those decisions. And the grand compromise was that cities can essentially do what they want with regard to building materials. They just have to be transparent about it. And so after it goes through the codes process, it will have to be adopted as I described by the city council. And so any codes that are out there currently, I mean, if a house has already been built, it wouldn't affect that. And if a house is under construction, it wasn't. But what cities and other local governments would have to do is they would have to adopt, if they wanted to leave everything the way it was, they'd have to run it through their city council to kind of put some sunshine on it and let the public be made aware of that.
Before I come back to you for a follow-up, Representative Alexander, let me state this, is that this is one of those things that I know a little bit. This is how I earn my pay on a normal basis, is dealing with these issues with towns and local municipalities and counties and such through the real estate development process. This bill it does not impact any development that has already been vested in its rights. If somebody has approved something and they have spent money towards it, then they are vested in those rights, and this bill would not undo that. But as far as the areas of application for this bill, it does not affect subdivisions that have private codes and restrictions. A developer can make any rule that he wants to with regards to how he wants his neighborhood to look. He could restrict it to one building material if he wants to, and the people who buy in there then could follow that. That the private codes and covenants, that's something that is done through a separate instrument. It's not a municipal entitlement or permit process. The other development type that this doesn't really affect is a planned unit development. A planned unit development is a situation to where a developer has a subdivision that he wants to develop, but he doesn't want to follow the city's codes exactly. And so everything in that point becomes a negotiated settlement of what's in and what's out. And so when a planned development is approved, if the city tells the developer, said, listen, we love what you're trying to do here. We love that concept, but we want to see the majority of these homes in here brick because it's okay with the surrounding areas. We think that it's near a downtown, whatever their reason is, then the rules are somewhat suspended because it's a negotiated settlement. The developer could just use the regular zoning ordinances and the process is set up by that, but he's negotiating for a little extra to do things that are outside the scope of the norm. And so at that point in time, the municipalities have the same way to push back a little bit. So in those two instances, this is not really applicable, but where it is applicable is if you just have a straight subdivided piece of property and somebody wants to go in and build their home. Well, this keeps somebody from arbitrarily saying, I know how your house should look. And it hasn't been through a process of approval by the local officials. It's someone making a decision arbitrarily sometimes. And that's what we're trying to prevent here, of restricting materials in that regard. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that the implications of this to municipalities, because I serve two districts that have long been two municipalities that long have been in the design review and design control aspect. That we're very particular about the way that we want to make sure that things are deemed appropriate for after somebody has come in and made an investment in the area. You don't want the next person to come in and have a lower barrier to entry or do something that's going to detract from the investment that you made in those property values. And so what this bill contemplates is that we'll basically have to readopt those ordinances that we already have. Because out of the two municipalities that I represent, one has I read through its design guidelines last night, no reference to building material, specific building materials. One has a short list of 6 bullet point items that will need to be removed from their DRC. But in the meantime, they can still control the design aspects of their community and the way it looks through their existing ordinances. So I don't think that what has been somewhat misguided in the review of this bill is the fact that we're changing design standards. We're not doing that at all. What we're doing is we're saying building materials come and go, their appearance comes and goes, their performance comes and goes with technology. And so you can't arbitrarily say that a specific building material is prohibited within a jurisdiction. And that was 1,000 words to give a 10-word answer. But I hope that everybody understands that. I hope I didn't confuse anybody further. And with that, you had a follow-up.
I just have some real concerns for the overlays that we have already in process in cities. We have one in my town where it's called the MedTech Corridor, and everything in that thing. It's very open to the public when we made those original things, but to have to go back and redo all those again to make sure somebody doesn't come in and decide to put a vinyl building in the middle of a whole section of area that's all brick, that's done for a specific reason. The other concern I have is I live in a historical town in Jonesboro also, and we have what's to keep someone from coming in and putting a metal building in the middle of a historical section? These are just some real concerns I have with this bill when we're saying that we've got to go back, and all these municipalities are going to have to go back and redo all of the building materials that are required if you're a building in a certain area when they've already done the work.
Thank you, ma'am. And I don't believe this bill contemplates that. The items I was talking about readopting were simply their design guidelines with regards to that, but I'll let the bill sponsor address that.
My understanding was that it didn't have anything to do with residential, which was what you were talking about earlier, like neighborhoods and stuff. They had more to do with municipalities.
Thank you,
Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The historical districts this does not affect them, anything that has to be done there. Anything that project that has preliminary approval or has already been done is vested. What this would do though is in their codes, if their codes involve any sort of building material, either exclusion or you can only use this product, just have to run it through the city council. We've worked a lot. There have been some cities across the state that had concerns with this, and honestly, rightly so. Early on, even as the bill sponsor, I had some concerns with the bill, and I have been very pleased with the collaboration between the cities and the Chamber of Commerce and the Safe Building Practices Coalition as they've come together and they've ironed out all the differences. At this point, I don't see any. I mean, they've taken it down to a level that the city said, we don't even want to do 2/3 majority. We want a simple majority, and they were willing to give on that issue. So at this point, it should be pretty simple for cities to take their codes and just run it back through the legislative body and get approval of that. And you can still have overlays.
All right, and if you develop another follow-up, Representative Alexander, we'll be back to you. We're headed over to Leader Camper now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sponsor. My question was around homeowners associations. Sometimes they have some particular way they want things to be within that homeowners association. Will this affect any of that? Or is it similar to what you're saying about the historic districts? What power or
I have my opinion on that, but we'll leave it up to the bill sponsor.
let's see what the sponsor says.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would not affect homeowners associations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
Chairman Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a clarification, if I understood the sponsor correctly, then the city council would have to go back and just reformulate these restrictions through an open process. So everybody would know that those things were going to be voted on, the notice given and all that. So my question is, and I understand that things that are already approved they're good to go, but what happens, because there's a timeline requirement when you do these new ordinances and procedures, so that you have to have, so many days public notice, and you have to have first and second readings and then approval and all that. So are we creating a timeline in there, a hole where somebody could come in and get something under construction without being restricted?
Bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was something that got amended too. At one point, I think it had to be a couple of weeks apart, two different readings of it. Now they've changed it to you could have it one day and have it the next and be done with it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Representative Alexander.
Can we regulate materials that do not entirely prohibit them? Like we allow vinyl, but we don't want vinyl in our overlay commercial section.
It's my understanding that that is correct, because what you talk about there in your design standards suddenly becomes what's appropriate for the area, what blends in with the area, what does not, because let's say that, let's use a different scenario, and that is glass. Glass is an approved material. Everybody loves glass, but an all glass building is not appropriate in every area. You don't want a new modern design in the middle of a historic section. And so that may be inappropriate, even though it's a perfectly good material. And so that's why I'm saying this bill that Chairman Boyd has brought forward does not contemplate the regulation of the design process. All it does is keep cities from prohibiting arbitrarily materials that, in other words, in an appropriate standpoint, may be perfectly fine, but they've been outlawed, or outlawed's not a good term, but they've been restricted from use in all over a jurisdiction. That's the point here. If I understand, if I got that wrong, Bill sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, you are well versed on these issues, and I very much appreciate a lot of that. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. It's very well said. And the one point that I would make, and this is kind of backing up to I think something you asked a second ago, you don't. Basically, it creates a pathway for cities to not necessarily ban a product, but then so let's use the vinyl thing you were talking about. They can't list vinyls can't be used. They're not allowed to say that, but that could require you to have all brick, all stone. They could, in a sort of reverse engineer way, do that essentially.
Yeah, I just want to thank Chairman Boyd for the legislation. I see it as a deregulation somewhat, if you will. One reason I'm for it is because we've got a housing crisis in Middle Tennessee, an affordable housing crisis. I look out and I see lobbyists in the room. I don't see nobody lobbying for affordable housing. I've never met that person. Bought my first house at 22. I see Jabri back here. Raise your hand, Jabri. Not many young people in the audience going to be able to buy a home at 22 or 25 or 27. Being around politics for 19 years, serving on the planning committee, Chairman, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Seen the ugly, Joe Towns. I really have. No disrespect, sir. I've seen it. I just want to share something with you because a lot of my mentors are passing away. They're older guys. They had a lot of wisdom. World War II generation, the greatest generation. One time I went to a planning committee in Rutherford County, and they may get mad at me sharing this, but that's okay. They wanted to impose sprinkler systems, Chairman Boyd, sprinkler systems on new homes. So I go to speak, and I just asked them, I said, how many of y'all got a sprinkler system in your own house? Nobody on the committee had a sprinkler system. The chairman didn't have a sprinkler system. The building codes director didn't have a sprinkler system. The fire chief didn't have a sprinkler system. Two guys had their hands held up. Y'all know who they were? Gerald, you know who they were? They were lobbyists for the Sprinkler System Association. Pam. A lot of this is lobbying. This excessive regulation is lobbying. I'm going to vote for it. I appreciate it. We got an affordable housing crisis in Middle Tennessee, my district. This is something that can help in a small way. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And I believe I heard a name of towns called.
Mr. Chairman, you did, and I need your help. With all your infinite wisdom and how you so eloquently state things, you need to answer this question for me. All my life, I've been bullied by midgets. And I need a resolution for that today, because in your committee, everybody heard it. I just been bullied by another midget.
We'll just let that one lay where it lays, Representative Towns. Before, could I get you to withdraw that for one reason? And the reason is when I looked at the language on amendment number 2, amendment number 2 speaks of the term design professional. What if, and I know that I eschew verbal amendments, but if my committee would so humor me in this, if we could add the term registered or licensed, a licensed design professional in front of that, I'd like to make that in the form of a motion if we could add the term license in front of design professional. We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. So we're going to add licensed on that. And then without objection, we're going to roll amendment 1 and 2 together, 1, 2, and 3 together. Okay. Now then, we got a question on the bill. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Let your noes be registered with the clerks, but the ayes have it. Thank you. And let me say something before I know we have a lot of folks going, but I want to say something, say thank you to our legal staff. Jamie King has done a great job. Ben Voitis keeps me in the road. We've got Kalani, Holly, and Caroline down there. And today, Mr. Sanders is our sergeant at arms. So anyway, thank you for a very successful year. I think we passed a lot of great legislation. Chairman Hazelwood.
While we're thanking people, I just want to thank you for an entertaining chairmanship.
Oh,
You've done a great job.
thank you. Thank you. All righty, y'all. Representative Calfee. All right, folks. Since there's no further business, the Commerce Committee is now closed pending a call of the chair.
Hey, I guess somebody must be.